know what you don't know. People want to believe the government is protecting them. They want to believe that these agencies are in place to protect them, to, oh boy, make guidelines that mean something, that are enforceable. These guidelines that they have are not enforceable. They're just a bunch of BS. Honestly, they're just BS. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Life, Liberty, and Wellness. That's my partner, Daria.
Hi, everyone.
And I'm Bev. Today, we're going to learn the language of the FDA. Not a sexy topic, but we think it's more important than sex. And we're going to see what you think by the end of the show. So, what we're going to find out today is that we don't know or understand about labels in our food supply. And for many of us, what we think we know is wrong. And this is important, yeah, because it's our food supply. It's what we put in our bodies to nourish our bodies and our families. So I'm happy and unhappy to bring this news. So, it reminds me of one of my favorite quotes with a little twist. What you don't know can hurt you. And that's exactly what I found out in my research on the labels that the FDA uses, the processes that they use to make these decisions. It's a government agency. Why did I expect more? But I did. Um, so, for instance, in this case, natural, what does natural mean to you when you look at a product that's labeled with natural? Well, we're going to find out. We're going to have a few little quizzes in the show and see what you think you know, but maybe you don't. So, the language of the FDA labeling system is not our only problem. It's not enough that they apply these guidelines, and you don't understand what guidelines are because they're not rules. They're not obligated by law. The food processors, whatever the FDA has set up as guidelines, they just they're just guidelines. They are exactly what they say. They're guidelines. We'd like for you to follow this, but you really don't have to. Um, so, and as you can imagine, I mean, I was horrified to find this out. And I thought, well, what does this mean? If you think you know what you're buying, what you're putting in your mouth is not what you're putting in your mouth, don't you think we have a right to know that? So, what we're going to do, we're going to talk about specifics, and then Daria is going to delve into some of the food products, look at some labels, so we really understand what's going on here. Because I don't know if there's anything more important than understanding this. So, and based on what we uncovered here, this is why we do this show. This is why we want to do this show, because we want people to know what they're dealing with, help them make decisions, help them do the research to learn for themselves so they know exactly what's going on in their lives. So, what I'm going to start with is something I found in Dr. Hyman's book, Food, What is the name of
What the
that?
heck should I eat? Is that what that says? The
Yeah,
subtitle?
that's What the Heck Should I Eat? Published in 2018. So, and as you can see, I've read it and marked some things years ago, but I decided to look in there and see what information he had, and it was really, really good. So, this is research based on his team. So, it says here's a fun little fact about food labels, serving sizes, and marketing. In 2003, the food lobby coerced the FDA into allowing food companies to label their products as trans fat free, those hydrogenated oils, if the product had less than a half a gram of trans fats per serving. Now let's understand what that means. For instance, he says the makers of Cool Whip can state that it is trans fat free food because there is less than 1/2 gram of trans fat per serving. 2 tablespoons is a serving for them. Now, how many tablespoons do you think are in a container of Cool Whip? And then
A lot.
divide that by 2 because there's a 1/2 gram, and that's how many grams of trans fat are in there. How many people do you know that eat Cool Whip can only eat 2 tablespoons even?
Crazy. No, and Bev, let me just say too, when you think about with Cool Whip too, a lot of people use that to make desserts like Jellos, and I don't know if people still eat Jello, but that was big when I was growing up.
Yep.
And so you're usually most of the time you're using it in like a dessert, so which means you're using a decent amount. You're probably using at least 1 tub, really, when you think about it. So yes, so that's crazy.
Do you see people going, well, I'm just going to eat 2 tablespoons? No, that's not even going to happen.
No.
So in essence, now don't blame Cool Whip. We're not on Cool Whip. We're not on any particular manufacturer, because what I just read here said the law or the guidelines were laid out to allow them to do this. So it's the FDA that we need to blame here, not Cool Whip. So in essence, Cool Whip and whoever else follows these guidelines can legally lie. Because when you look at the label on a Cool Whip container, I did, you look at the label and where it says trans fats, it says 0. It's 0. But it's not 0. Does that upset anybody? It's not 0. Okay, I'm going to try not to get too upset, but it's going to be hard because that was 2003. And he goes on, this is in his book, finally in 2015, 12 years later, millions of people's health is damaged. The FDA ruled that trans fats are not safe to eat. 12 years later. Okay. Or they've got a label for that, by the way, people. It's non-GRAS, which is an acronym for, you're going to love this one. Let's see, this one is generally recognized as safe. Well, this is non. So it's generally recognized as safe. What are they, 5-year-olds? What? I mean, really, why would you create a label that says that? Does that protect them by some law? Because evidently there are no laws to control this. So why not just say, it's not safe to eat, let's take it off the market?
Considering it's a government agency, I'm not surprised, but
I know.
Maybe I've become too cynical. I don't know. I'd like to think of it as just I'm awake, fully awake now, but
I'm with you. So
it's crazy.
So then they go on to say, but they've given the food industry a long time to get the trans fats out of products. So beware. This is from his book still. Read ingredient list. Don't eat anything with the word hydrogenated on the label. And again, Darius is going to talk about that in a little bit. So let me just continue the history on this. I thought, well, he published that in 2018. What's happened since then? Because it's still in the food, or is it? So fast forward to 2022. Well, actually, I couldn't find anything past 2020. And I've got the link. We're going to put that in there because, we want you guys to do your own research and understand what this is, and don't believe us. So on the FDA.gov site for this particular thing, it says, and I just took a portion here, however, this is their language, FDA. However, to allow for an orderly transition in the marketplace, I hate reading this. FDA is allowing more time for products produced prior to June of 2018 to work through their distribution. Okay, let me finish and we'll go back to that. I know you want to say something. FDA is extending the compliance date for these foods to, listen, January 2020, Well, that's only 17 years later that they started this whole process. Oh, I promised myself I wouldn't get excited. This action balances, listen to this one, this action balances the health benefits of removing PHOs from the food supply with the need to provide an orderly transition in the marketplace. You know what that says? I'm going to interpret here. So take this as my interpretation is it is, use the language I want to use, more important for the food processors to work through their systems and figure out how to make food without trans fats than it is to stop feeding us poison. It's important for them to work through their distribution. You have anything, Daria? Because I need to calm down. My blood pressure's up.
Well, I was going to say, Bev, aren't corporate profits the most important thing in all of this? And I joke around because when I say that, I get accused of being a socialist or a communist, which I'm neither of those things. It's just so frustrating that when you think about it, and as you said when you opened the show, food is a fundamental thing. Like we may not all take medicine, we may not all be on prescription drugs, but we all eat food. And we all rely, and let me just back up too, Beverly, when in your research, was there any information about the members who comprise the FDA? Because I want everybody to remember, we do not elect these people. What are their qualifications? What gives them the right to do this? Are they being paid off? Because my mantra, which I got from Michelle Malkin, my favorite investigative reporter, is follow the money to find the truth. And guess what? And this is not cynical. It's usually the answer. It's just reality. And I think we all need to face that. And not to get, I do get emotional too, Bev, but I think I'd rather be awake and know what's going on so that we can all do something about it. We can make different choices. We might not be able to change the system because I believe, Bev, that this is a bottom-up thing, which is why we're doing this show. And the more people who are aware, the more you can make better choices. However, let's understand reality and so that we can respond to it and not so much to get upset, which it is upsetting though, I understand, but more to channel that into, okay, I'm going to make better choices for myself. And now that I'm aware, I'm not going to take anything at face value, what the FDA says. And believe me, if the last 2.5 years haven't proven that, I don't know what else will, Bev. So
totally agree, Darian. Thank you for that. So I'm going to move on to another area of the FDA's control guidelines. So not only can we not trust the product claims, and we're following the guidelines. So the next area I want to go into is the labels like natural, organic, healthy, those sorts of things, because they don't mean what you think they do either. And we're going to have a little quiz. So when you pick up a product at the grocery store and it says organic, what do you think? Daria, I'm going to ask you, what do you think organic means on that product?
Well, I would think that it means just as it is produced in nature, that it hasn't been synthesized, if you will. It hasn't, that there's nothing artificial in it, that it's just natural, the way God made it.
Yeah. You get the buzzer. Okay.
I knew that. I knew I was going to get the buzzer.
So, you know what it is? If a product is labeled as being made with an organic ingredient, it means it's at least 70% organic.
Just 70%?
70% of the ingredients are organic. Now, if that's not bad enough, let's look a little deeper. What's the other 30? But really, what's the breakdown? How do I know which 70% is organic and what the 30% that's not? And how bad is it? Since we only have guidelines that allow processors to put whatever the hell they want to put in the food. It's not, I thought it meant 100% dairy. I thought it was organic. It's 100%. It's organic. All of it's organic. Why can't, if it's only 70%, then why don't they put that on the label? 70% organic.
Let me put it this way, Bev, and I'm a writer. So the dictionary definition of organic is natural. So that differs from, the FDA created their own definition apparently, and so did the food manufacturers, because so it's not like most things the government tells us, it's not what it appears to be.
Yep. I just lost my screen. Hold on a second. All right. I hit a button out of my excitement. Okay, let's go to the next label. The next label is healthy. So when the product, it says healthy, and that's a little loose. So Darius, since we're not live, I want to ask you what you think healthy means. And be honest, maybe since it's so broad.
My definition of healthy would be something that supports health and well-being. So there's something that you ingest that's going to actually be good for your body and not cause any harm. And I just want to say too, that could be different things. I don't want to get off track from our discussion, but I mean, healthy for me might not be exactly the same as healthy for someone else. Like, for example, if you had a food allergy and you were allergic to spinach, okay, that wouldn't be healthy for you. But in the broader sense, healthy should be something that supports your overall health and well-being, right?
Should be. And this one, it's not as ugly as the others, but it's interesting. So here's what the FDA says right from their site. The FDA is updating its definition for this claim. I think this must be for legal reasons they use these loose terms. Companies can make the healthy claim if the fats in their foods are mostly mono and polyunsaturated fats. Mostly, no percentage, mostly.
When it's time, I have something to say about polyunsaturated. Sorry, Bev, didn't mean to interrupt you. Polyunsaturated healthy, haha. Okay, continue.
Okay. The healthy claim also can be used on products that have at least, wait for it, 10% of the daily value of potassium and vitamin D.
Did I hear you right? 10% as in 10 fingers?
10%, and this is a healthy label.
10%, okay.
And remember, that's the daily value pyramid that's not worth a what to begin with. So, but why does 10% of anything deserve a label that says healthy and mostly mono and polyunsaturated fats? That's it. That's what the FDA said. Okay, let's go to, I think this is the last one of those kinds of labels. Natural. Natural. It says natural, and that's kind of loose too. But here we go. I'll just read you. No need to do a quiz on this one because it's stupid. I'm sorry. Okay. This word has no official definition. Even though people, manufacturers can say natural, it means nothing. It's not really what I wanted to say. So it can be misleading. This is what they're saying. Natural usually means that nothing artificial. Usually means there's nothing artificial has been added to the product itself. But it doesn't cover production methods or use of synthetic pesticides or other non-natural things during growing. But remember, they're allowed to put natural on the label. Okay, Daria, you can talk.
I want to understand this. So let's say, hypothetically, they spray Roundup on the crops. We can still call that natural, the glyphosate in Roundup, which is causing so many problems for people?
I'm checking the definition. Yes. Yes, you can, manufacturer. Yes, you can.
Once again, George Orwell is vindicated. What can I say? Up is down, right is wrong, war is peace, freedom is slavery, natural is glyphosate. This is just like, it makes me so mad. I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm laughing because if I don't, I'm going to probably break my computer screen right now.
I know. I think everybody's going to freak out after they listen to this show. I really do. And I kind of hope they do. So they'll get to work and understand what they're putting in their mouths.
Yes.
And myself included. I'm shocked by all of these. Absolutely. Because I made assumptions. And some of the assumptions I think were rightly justified. But not when you understand what they really mean.
Exactly. Yes.
There's just a few more here I want to go over. Humanely raised. Now, this is not a controlled term by the FDA. Why would they even say anything is controlled by the FDA? Because it's not. So it says check for third-party certifications to back up their claims. So just know that. Hormone-free. All animals have hormones. So with the dairy, beef, or lamb, look for no hormones added. For poultry, veal, eggs, bison, and pork, all are free of added hormones because they're banned by law. And let's hope everybody is at least following that law, but who's checking? Gluten-free. Now listen, this label is important for people with gluten sensitivity, celiac disease, and autoimmune condition, but there's no FDA symbol for this. Well, good, because it doesn't mean anything anyway. And I'm sure there are no lobbyists because that group is not big enough and doesn't involve a lot of drugs and all that kind of stuff. So just do your own research on the gluten-free, and we already knew that. Okay. I have scared you all enough, I think. I hope I've scared you into doing some serious research on the foods you're currently eating. But what I want to do is pass the mic to Daria so she can delve into a few products specifically so you really understand what's happening. And she likes to talk about the hydrogenated oils. So take it away, Daria. Daria.
Oh my goodness. Sorry.
There you go.
Myself. Hello. So Bev, I was saying I want to kind of piggyback on a few points that you made before I move into that. And once again, I would like to vindicate Dr. Robert Atkins, who was vilified during his lifetime, because guess what? I first heard of trans fats from Dr. Atkins. And he first started doing his research and working with patients in the 1970s. And I want to be clear, just let me back up and say that he is not the founder of the keto diet. Like the keto diet was developed decades and decades before. And actually, it's the way people ate. That's the way we used to eat many, many centuries ago. And I won't get into that whole rabbit hole because we can reserve that for another show. But my point is, this man in the 70s was talking about trans fats. Now, I never got into reading his book until 1999. And it was just amazing how he was talking about trans fats, and he was also talking about these oils, right? These so-called vegetable oils, right? That are really industrial seed oils which are the polyunsaturated that the FDA thinks are healthy, right? He talked about those, and he talked about high fructose corn syrup, which is something that Dr. Mark Hyman also talked about. So, but just to talk about the PUFAs for a second, and these are what Bev was referring to, the polyunsaturated fatty acids. So Dr. Kate Shanahan, who is wonderful, and we will put a link for her in the show notes, and so that you can go to her website and kind of click around because it's very, very interesting. And I first heard of Dr. Kate Shanahan on the Keto Camp podcast by Ben Azadi, which is an excellent, excellent podcast. He interviews so many amazing, amazing guests. But anyway, that's where I came to know Dr. Kate Shanahan. And so she says that oxidative stress is the root cause of non-infectious disease. So, and Bev alluded to that when you were talking about autoimmune. So I just want to remind everybody that autoimmune diseases or non-infectious diseases are things like diabetes, heart disease, Hashimoto's, arthritis, celiac disease. So they're not contagious, but there's definitely an epidemic. I mean, really talk about a pandemic. This is the biggest problem we have in this country. 88% of us are metabolically unhealthy. Type 2 diabetes is through the roof. By the way, all these things have skyrocketed since the FDA created the food pyramid and, created those guidelines as well. And something I want to say about guidelines too, Bev, and I know that these are guidelines and these are not laws. However, FDA guidelines do dictate what kids in public school eat, which you won't be surprised to know is a lot of these PUFAs and a lot of, things with high fructose corn syrup, like soda, which we seem to be addicted to as a country, not you and I, but certainly many people. So, and they do inform, what you eat at a hospital. I mean, I find it really ironic that if you're in the hospital for any kind of illness, that they're giving you high carb, high sugar garbage that's processed, because that's also following the guidelines, but that are actually really enforced. And a really quick story about that, Dr. Ken Berry, who is another excellent functional medicine MD that I would recommend following online. Let me just tell this quick story. He lives in a small town in Tennessee, and he tells the story of his kid's school. And these women, I guess they're retired ladies that volunteer. They would volunteer at lunchtime to feed the kids. And they were so horrified by all the processed crap that they were feeding kids that these women actually took it upon themselves to cook good food, chicken, meat, whatever, vegetables, but cook them in a healthy way, right? And they were starting to feed these kids. They would bring the food to school. They weren't asking anybody else to pay for it. They did this because they were actually concerned about the health of these children. And guess what? They were told to cease and desist or they were going to be fired because we're not following FDA guidelines. So again, we're talking about food. And here are these women who were paying for it on their own dime. And their concern was the health of these children and what they were feeding them. And they were told, you either stop or you lose your job. And that's Dr. Ken Berry. You can look him up on YouTube. He talks about it. Do a search. It's out there. But getting back to the seed oil. So really the seed oils are the primary driver of oxidative stress. And that's what's causing all these problems. And so basically these PUFAs, they create these uncontrolled oxidative attacks while in our cell membranes. So it's at a cellular level. And this is Dr. Kate Shanahan, and we will put a link to this article. Now she's saying our bodies, and Bev, you've talked about this before, it's a good and bad thing that our bodies are so resilient, they can take a lot. So, if you eat a little bit of seed oils, your body can handle it. You can handle some of these spontaneous reactions because these fats are so unstable. That's what's going on. And they're creating all this oxidative stress in the body. The body can handle some of it. But when the total burden of PUFAs, the polyunsaturated fatty acids, so we're talking about cottonseed oil, vegetable oil, canola oil, grapeseed oil, all of those things, right? When you have an overload of those things in your body, when the total burden of PUFA exceeds your body's capacity, oxidative stress disrupts what's called homeostasis. And so let me just define what that is in layman's terms. Homeostasis is the state of internal physical and chemical conditions maintained by living systems. It's a condition of optimal functioning. So it's a stable equilibrium between all the interdependent elements. So basically all the systems of your body are working in balance and stability. And that's homeostasis. Well, if you have too many of these PUFAs in your system, it's going to disrupt that. And eventually it does cause all the problem. I mean, look around at all the chronic. I mean, how many people do you know that have diabetes? And I'm talking about type 2. I'm not talking about type 1, which is an autoimmune that happens when you have antibodies that attack your pancreas, and then your pancreas can no longer produce insulin. So that's type 1, and that's a totally different thing. But how many people do you know that have type 2, right? And that's really caused by diet and lifestyle and eating, and sugar and these awful fats that we're not supposed to be eating, that the FDA says is, some of them they're healthy. So it's just mind-boggling when you think about it. And like I said, after the last 2.5 years, if you're still trusting the FDA, then I would suggest do a little bit more research because they certainly have not earned our trust. And we don't know who these people are. We don't elect them. We don't know what their qualifications are. We don't know if they have any conflict of interest, say, with some of these big food corporations. And we should be asking these questions. So that's what I think, Bev. And let me just also, Dr. Mark Hyman, whose book you showed us earlier, he talks a lot about high fructose corn syrup, which was also Dr. Atkins. When I read his book, I learned about that too. And I was like, wow, it was just something I was not aware of until then. And so Dr. Hyman, now I'm referring to a blog post on his site, which is drhyman.com. And again, we'll put a link to that here. But he says in America today, we are eating huge doses of sugar, especially high fructose corn syrup. And why is that, right? It's sweeter and cheaper than regular sugar. So again, getting back to those profit margins, right? And it's in every processed food and sugar sweetened drink. And he says the single best thing you can do for your diet is to purge this. So he says now, and this is, you kind of alluded to this earlier too, Bev, in recent history. So think about like the last 20, 30, 40 years, maybe even the last 50 years. We've gone from 20 teaspoons of sugar per person per year. Okay, 20 teaspoons of sugar per person per year to about, get this, Bev, 150 pounds of sugar per person.
No, Daria. Did you read that right?
I read that right.
Oh
this
my
is
God.
drhyman.com. And this blog is from 2013. So who knows? That's almost 10 years ago. I mean, I don't even want to know what that statistic is now.
No, you don't. Yeah. Are you kidding me? 10. Oh.
So now how much soda? Listen, when you think about commercials, like if you're watching TV, what are the commercials? Depending on what you're watching, beer, but there's a lot of soda commercials, right?
Mm-hmm.
Coke.
Yeah.
Right. Pepsi. Right.
They're making a lot of money, so they can afford all that advertising.
Well, the average 20-ounce soda, which is probably what most people drink, right? The average 20-ounce soda contains 15 teaspoons of sugar, all of it high fructose corn syrup. Oh. And he's saying when you eat it in those doses, it becomes a toxin. I mean, let's set aside your blood sugar for a moment. Let's just, even as important as that is, let's just set that aside. You eat sugar in these doses, it becomes a toxin. And he says, furthermore, to make this even worse, part of the chemical process used to make high fructose corn syrup, the glucose and fructose. So glucose and fructose are naturally bound together. Well, they become separated during this chemical process. This allows the fructose to mainline directly into your liver, which turns on a factory of fat production in your liver called lipogenesis, which leads to fatty liver. So let's just back up. When we think of fatty liver, what do we normally think of? Alcoholism, right?
Right.
Oh, that person. Okay, well, this is non-alcoholic fatty liver.
Wow.
Because when you drink too much fructose, let's say in the form of soda, it goes directly into your liver, and our liver is our filter. And I like Benazati calls it the soccer mom, or because it does so much for us. I mean, we should do a show just about the liver sometime, Bev. It's that important.
I think we should. And also all of these drinks.
Yes.
That needs to be,
yes.
People need to know.
And Dr. Amy recently, I listened to it. She did a quick podcast on like love your liver. And it's so true. But my whole point is here, like, just because you're not drinking alcohol, if you're drinking lots and lots of soda, you could still get fatty liver. And it's the most, now again, this was from 2013, but he's saying in this blog post that fatty liver is the most common disease in America today, affecting 90 million Americans. And then in turn now, right, that's not even the worst of it. This leads to diabetes. So pre-diabetes and type 2 diabetes. And I'm telling you, like, I'm sure everybody listening here knows at least one person, or maybe they themselves have type 2 diabetes.
Right.
So high fructose corn syrup is the real driver of the current epidemic of heart attacks, strokes, cancer, dementia, and of course, type 2 diabetes. And I also want to point out here too, a lot of people have this misconception that you can't do anything about type 2 diabetes. All you can do is manage it, because that's what the pharmaceutical companies tell us. That's what I'll call the mainstream conventional doctors tell us. That is doctors who've gone to medical school, whose curriculum is dictated by big pharma. They're going to tell you, oh, you've got it and there's nothing you can do about it. However, I'm here to tell, and I don't have it myself. However, follow people like Dr. Brian Lenski's, watch the documentary Fat Fiction, and you will discover that you can totally reverse it and even get off of your medication by changing your lifestyle, changing your diet. And we can maybe delve into that on another show. But my whole point is, it doesn't have to be a death sentence. It doesn't have to lead to you having your limbs amputated because you got diabetic foot. Okay. It's completely reversible. And not a lot of people realize that, because that's not what they're being told. So I just wanted to point that out, Bev, because that really bothers me. And then there's something else here too, as if all of this isn't bad enough. Dr. Hyman tells us high fructose corn syrup also contains dangerous chemicals and contaminants. So he says, beside the ginormous load of pure fructose and sugar found in high fructose corn syrup, as an added bonus, it contains other chemical toxins. Shocking, I know, right?
I'm sick. I honestly. Go ahead.
Isn't it bad? I know it really is. But like I said earlier, use this and turn it into a positive thing. For example, if you're drinking soda, cut it out. If you take anything away from the show, cut out soda, cut out the PUFAs, cook with avocado oil and coconut oil, and make your salad dressing with olive oil. Those are good things you can do. Eat butter, eat real butter. Don't listen to the I can't believe it's not butter commercials, because that's garbage. But anyway, so he says that the chemical contaminants used during manufacturing end up in the high fructose corn syrup and in our food. So we know, for example, chloralkali, I think I'm saying that right. Chloralkali is used in making high fructose corn syrup, and this contains mercury. Isn't that great?
Oh, mercury, just what I want in my body.
Right? And there are trace amounts of mercury found in high fructose corn syrup containing beverages. And again, just to reiterate, Coke, Pepsi, Sprite, Mountain Dew, which also contains bromide, which is horrible, horrible for you. Nobody should be, it's total garbage. Now he's saying, okay, might not be a problem if once in a while, you have a Coke, but what's the average person in this country doing? They're consuming more than 20 teaspoons a day of high fructose corn syrup. And the average teenager, Bev, has 34 teaspoons a day. So what happens over time?
And Daria, is this creating the addiction, the sugar? Because I believe it's an addiction. It becomes an addiction. So they're not just drinking one per day, are they? No. I don't know. I don't have teenagers, so.
No, it is an addiction. And Dr. Amy Horniman, and you can look her up as well, on many of her episodes, she's talked about how the same area in the brain that lights up with cocaine lights up with sugar. So yes, it is an addiction. So you may not be addicted to cocaine, but if you're drinking a lot of sugar, it's just, yes, it's, and cancer cells, I would like to point out, love sugar as well.
Yeah.
Cancer loves glucose. And so just a whole lot of reasons why we should all be staying away from this. So basically he says, in conclusion, if you want to stay healthy, lose weight easily, get rid of chronic disease, and help reduce the obesity epidemic, which is another epidemic in this country, the single most important thing you can do is eliminate high fructose corn syrup from your diet. And if you have children, certainly eliminate it from their diet. Just banish it from your house. Okay, and then here's where it gets into some food labels, Bev, and here's where I took a few photos today of some different food labels. But just to let everyone know, again, go to drhyman.com and look up we'll put a link to this in the show notes, but the blog about high fructose corn syrup, he ends it by saying, go into your cupboard or refrigerator, look at every single label, count how many products you have right now in your house that contain high fructose corn syrup. Then I want you to get a big garbage bag, throw them out, and replacements that are free of it. And, here's the interesting thing too, Beverly, and this is coming from Dr. Hyman. He says, if you want to have some sugar, that's fine. Have a little sugar, but add it to your food yourself. And don't get me wrong, I'm not advocating everybody have sugar, but you would be better off, let's say you put a teaspoon of like table sugar in your coffee. You would be better off doing that and cutting out all this other stuff than drinking all this high fructose corn syrup. Yes. So because at least you could burn off a teaspoon of sugar in your coffee. Okay. So, but and it's not going to build up in your system over time and create all of these problems. And again, I'm not advocating people do that, but I'm just making a point that, look, I understand it and I'm not perfect 100% of the time. So, and even Dr. Hyman, so this is coming from, very reputable he's amazing. But I did, just out of some curiosity today, I did take some photos of food labels. And so, Bev, do you like peanut butter? Just want to ask you.
I do, but I don't eat it anymore because peanuts, as I understand, have some arsenic in it and they're not good for your digestive system. So I usually get almond butter.
Okay. But a lot of people, I would suspect, I haven't really done the research into it, but many people like peanut butter. And it is certainly, it's something that's part of, if you're following a keto diet, it's allowable. I personally don't eat a lot, but occasionally, I have a couple of keto cookbooks that call for peanut butter, but they're very specific about saying get organic peanut butter. So just to make a point, because especially if people have kids love peanut butter, right? So I bought some organic peanut butter, and not that I'm married to any one brand here, but this happens to be Santa Cruz, it's called. But any organic peanut butter brand you can find in the supermarket now. Okay, so Bev, take a couple of guesses. What do you think is in the organic peanut butter?
Ooh, let's see. Peanuts, oil, salt. That's all that I think should be. I don't know.
Well, in the organic, it's just peanuts, basically, and salt, according to this brand. Okay, so peanuts and salt. So everybody take note of that. Okay, and hang on. Now let's look at a label of a popular peanut butter brand. I'm not even going to say what it is, but it's something you would find in the supermarket and that most people would know. Okay, so Bev, take a few guesses. What do you think is in this peanut butter?
And it's not labeled organic?
No, it's not organic. It's a brand that everybody would know, one of the popular brands of peanut butter.
Oh, boy. I bet there's several words I can't pronounce. There's peanuts, salt. They probably add oil because it's usually really creamy.
Yes.
There's preservatives. I know there have to be preservatives. There's probably some kind of hydrogenated oil. I don't know.
Well, you are correct about the hydrogenated oil. So there's, of course, dry roasted peanuts. Now, why would we need to add sugar to peanut butter? I don't know. Hydrogenated vegetable oil. And then in parentheses, honestly, I have to be honest, I've never heard of this first one. Rapeseed, which I hate the name, cottonseed, and soybean, which we need to do a show about soy, about how bad that is. So in parentheses, they have a note here saying rapeseed, cottonseed, and soybean. Those are the 3 different vegetable oils that are in here. Salt, which is not bad, and molasses. Why would you need to put molasses in peanut butter?
And sugar. And molasses are sweet anyway, I think, but I don't know. Maybe in their natural form they're not, but I doubt they're using the total natural form. But yeah, okay. So you're not really having peanut butter, are you? I mean, it's peanut butter and molasses.
Yeah, right. So, Bev, do you like lemon meringue pie? I'm not saying you eat it, but I mean.
Oh, I used to eat it. I did like it. Yeah, I just can't eat that stuff anymore because I know too much.
Yeah. Well, here's again where I would say, well, let's do this little experiment. So I took a look at Marie Callender's frozen lemon meringue pie. Just out of curiosity, I was in the supermarket and I'm like, let me just see what's in this. Okay. So what would anybody think when you think of lemon meringue pie, though? What do you think should be in it? Let's put it that way.
I would say lemons for sure. If it's a lemon meringue pie, gosh, I don't know. There wouldn't be any eggs.
Well, sugar. Maybe some eggs in the meringue, right? Yeah, sugar, right?
Yeah, the meringue is eggs, yeah. And there's sugar in there. I mean, it should just, I don't know. I haven't made one in years. So lemon, sugar, water. I don't know what else.
Yeah, so basic things. Okay, so so now if you were to buy one in a bakery, I would think that that's what's in it. But let's take a look at what happens when you buy a frozen one in the supermarket. And again, Marie Callender's is a brand that most people know, right? And think it's something great. My gosh, it might take me the rest of the show just to read you this list, but let me get started here. So water, okay, fine. Sugar, enriched wheat flour, which again contains gluten, so bad for those of us with autoimmune. And then in parentheses, it has wheat flour, niacin, reduced iron, and I don't know what this is, but thiamine mononitrate, riboflavin, folic acid, and then soybean oil and hydrogenated soybean oil. We finally get to lemon, right? I'm on the 4th line, and we finally see lemon juice.
Oh, there's the lemon. Yeah, that means it's way down there. Yeah. Why are they still using hydrogenated oil, though?
I And then there's modified cornstarch, egg yolks, concentrated milk. Now, here's what it contains less than 2% of. Egg whites. Now, really, if you're making a real lemon meringue pie, I would think like the meringue would consist mostly of egg whites, right?
Yeah.
Salt.
What the hell is it then? If it's not egg whites, what's all that fluff?
Salt, dextrose, cornstarch, carob bean gum. I don't even know what that is. Carob, C-A-R-O-B, bean gum. Cellulose gum, something called agar-agar, A-G-A-R. I don't even know what that is, Bev, I'll be honest, but I don't want to eat it if I don't know what it is. Right? Sodium aluminum phosphate. Who wants to put some sodium aluminum phosphate in their body?
Yeehaw!
Oh, let's see. Lemon oil. We finally get to lemon oil, and I'm like 10 lines into it. Guar gum, G-U-A-R, gum. I don't know there's a lot of gum in this product. Cream of tartar, natural flavor, whatever that means, right? Natural flavor. It's not really
natural. Yeah, it's just natural.
Dough conditioner. I don't even know what that means, honestly. And then in parentheses after dough conditioner, it says sodium metabosulfite, which I don't know what sodium metabosulfite is, but I don't think I want to be eating it.
It conditions the dough.
So anyway, Bev, so that just gives people an idea. We'll put photos of these with the show when we post this, when the show is up on our platforms, up on Rumble and everything. But it's just unbelievable. And how many people do you think are really going to read all of that before they buy that product?
They don't. I do, but I guess I'm a little weird that I want to know what's in there and what I don't want to eat.
Yeah.
Put in my body. But people just, as I started out with, you don't know what you don't know. People want to believe the government is protecting them. They want to believe that these agencies are in place to protect them, to make guidelines that mean something, that are enforceable. These guidelines that they have are not enforceable. They're just a bunch of BS. Honestly, they're just BS. So, did you have some more products to go over, Daria?
Well, what else did I do? Crackers. Everybody loves crackers. So let's just finish with this. Okay. So they're called pita crackers. And let's just see what's in them. Okay. So ingredients: enriched flour. Okay. But then in parentheses, so enriched flour. Okay. Keep that in mind. Right. And then in parentheses, let me just go back here. Wheat flour, niacin, reduced iron, vitamin B1, and then there's another parentheses after that says thiamine mononitrate, vitamin B2, and then it has riboflavin after that, and folic acid. Here we go, soybean oil. And then get this, Bev, it's not just soybean oil, but in parentheses it says with TBHQ for freshness. Does not define what TBHQ is, but apparently it's for freshness. Rice. Go ahead. Sorry.
No. Go.
Just crazy, right? Rice flour, sugar, oat fiber. Then it contains 2% or less of sea salt, buttermilk, dried garlic, yeast, whey, spices, citric acid, yeast extract, Parmesan. We finally get to Parmesan cheese, like all the way at the bottom, right? And this product is labeled as like Parmesan crackers, basically. Natural flavor. Again, that word natural. So it's so vague. Natural flavor. Well, what does that mean, really?
Does that mean that they hand squeeze the juice or lemon on it? That would be me, but I don't think that's them.
No, I don't think so. Lactic acid, and then the last thing is soy, and then I don't know how to say this. Lecithin, Lecithin. Soy lectin. I don't know. Soy lectin, maybe. I don't know what that is, but I know if it's soy, I'm staying away from it. So those are just a few examples, Bev, but I think it gives people an idea of what to look for. And I would just suggest next time you're at the grocery store, or really just go into your pantry and start reading labels, and into your freezer too. I mean, the frozen stuff too. I mean, and I know a lot of us, buy that for convenience. But you know what, Bev, I didn't do it for this show, but interesting to look at a label of ice cream sometime.
Oh, yeah.
So.
And, we're not saying well, for your best health, yeah, I wouldn't eat. I figure out what these labels say and don't eat anything that has even a 0.5 gram per serving of trans fats. But if you eat it on a regular basis every day, all day long, like the sodas, you are going to be sick. You are damaging your body. We're not there's no way to think otherwise unless you just want to be blind to the truth. And some people do. They don't want to know that what they're doing is damaging their health. They don't want to know that because they like it. It makes them feel good, even though they feel bad, and they don't even know how bad they feel because they felt bad for so long that they're used to it.
Yes. And the problem is that because it's over time, there's not you can't see the direct correlation because maybe it happens 20, 30 years later that you develop all these chronic problems. And that's where it's a good and bad thing that the body is so resilient.
Exactly.
So,
and and I get comments all the time. I'm not in perfect health by any means, but the body is getting there. And I was not a healthy eater. I was not a healthy, conscious individual until I think the early 2000s. And I had several years before that. So I probably had 40 years of not eating well. And so I probably did damage to my body. I did, but I didn't know any better. So we're hoping what we're giving here is going to help people see early on. And as they're feeding their children, get them started on a healthy way to eat. And they won't know what that junk tastes like. And they won't want it because you've embedded in their brains that this is healthy food. And this is how you keep your health and how you live a happy life. Because when your health is crap, so is your life.
Exactly.
I don't know. I mean, that sounds a little crass, but I probably could have said it a little more professionally and sweet, but I'm really not that way.
It's true. Most people are going to go to the doctor, to a conventional doctor, and that doctor's not going to ask them 9 times out of 10, what are you eating? And here's what their doctor's going to say, well, here's a pill for this, or I'm going to write a prescription for that.
This is what I give everybody. You have high blood pressure, take the pill.
Yep. Let me just say one thing in closing, Bev, or at least for me, I think one thing you could also start doing is like cook fresh vegetables, buy fresh vegetables. And I want to say, like, I mean, cooking with real fat that's healthy for you, real good, healthy fat, it's good. You can use avocado oil. You can make salad dressing with olive oil, coconut oil, real butter. Like I love the Kerrygold butter. It's amazing. And I would, again, stick with organic because the cows are not injected with synthetic hormones. Yes, they have. And I want to just say this too. Bioidentical hormones are a good thing. I take bioidentical thyroid medication that I believe comes from a cow, right? Okay, that's fine. But as Bev was saying earlier, make sure it says no added hormones because those are the artificial ones that they're injecting them with, again, for money and profit. And we can delve into that in another episode. But look for this. And this is why even if organic costs $1 or $2 more, like let's just say for the Kerrygold butter, it costs $1 more. You know what? It's worth it to have that really good butter. And it is delicious. And you can cook your vegetables with it, your broccoli, your spinach, really good, healthy veggies. So I guess my whole point, I just want to wrap this up for me by saying that this doesn't mean you're going to be miserable in what you're eating. I mean, there's good salt out there. Salt is good that's we could do a whole show about that too. But I mean, you can season things well, cook with good fats, and it's delicious. Nobody's telling you that you have to, live this austere life with things that don't taste, eating food that doesn't taste good.
No, and I can just add a short story. I was thinking as you were saying that, I always try to introduce people to nice, good, fresh foods so they can see that healthy is yummy. And my neighbor's a good example. He helps me out with a lot of stuff, so I feed him every now and then. And he always really enjoys it. And I'm like, this is easy and it's healthy. He said, I know, because you always eat healthy stuff. So the other day I made some chicken fingers that weren't as good as my last recipe. I gave it to him, and he didn't send me a text and say, man, those were delicious, because he usually does do that. So I thought, oh, he didn't like them. Doggone it. So then I talked to him about it. He said, well, they were good, but they weren't your usual. Usually you have your stuff is like so super good. And that wasn't the super good stuff I expect from you. So, it was a compliment, and it means that, my healthy cooking for him, he does notice it, and it is good. Even for people who go, well, I like to eat pasta and lasagna and all this stuff. Because not again, people who are used to eating that way have their taste buds are adjusted for that. So even if you give some people really healthy, tasty food, it's so unusual for them. It throws their taste buds off, and it's like, yeah, it's okay, but I really like my fettuccine. Ooh, okay, don't even let me go there. All right, so we've presented a real problem here for all of us, really important problem to address. So what we want to do is offer suggestions. Not that you're not smart enough to figure these out, but we just came up with things like start a garden. And by the way, this is like a big movement, and we all may have to do this because I'm not sure what's going to happen to the food supply, and it's going to be healthier. It doesn't mean you have to create a big garden. You can do gardening inside, you can grow sprouts. But I was at Walmart yesterday. They got all kinds of garden stuff, like the kind of things you put together, a raised garden, which I need because I don't want to bend over or bend down on my knees to do the gardening. So I want a raised garden box that I can put stuff in. So that's something you can do. And if you've got kids, you get them involved. Nothing better than that. If they grow up growing their own food and seeing how things are grown. Buy from a local farmer. If you're busy and you don't have time to do all that stuff, you can't get into it, try to find a local farmer. And there are services that you can buy like a box a week or box every 2 weeks of whatever they have for one flat price. You can pick it up at different locations. I'll look for a link to that kind of service. You've heard of that, right, Daria?
Actually belong to a service like that called Moink.
But they don't do vegetables, so do they? They do the meat.
Yeah, they do the grass-fed meat, which is, I'd like to do a show on how it's actually good for you, but but I mean, they have chicken, salmon, pork, pretty much anything you want. You can and you can customize the box, which I like. But I know when I eat that meat that it has not been treated with artificial hormones. So, but then there's also there's so many services out there, like you said, with vegetables that you can get. There's a lot of options.
There are lots of options, and if you're too busy to figure it out, we'll do what we can to help you. The other thing is, this may require a lot of you to change the way you think. So I would suggest looking for new recipes with utilizing fresh produce. And, as we all know, you can search the internet. There's lots of things out there. Once you get a couple recipes that you really enjoy, then it becomes a habit. Oh, let's make that dish because that was easy. I roast vegetables all the time, not too, you don't want to char them too much, but they're so tasty. Carrots, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, and it's easy. You clean them, you cut them, you rub them in oil, you throw them in the broiler for like 5 minutes. I don't bake them. Bake them makes them too soft. Maybe we should do a cooking show. But I put them under the broiler, and like broccoli for my broiler can be 5, 7, 8 minutes. It doesn't get any easier than that. And you're not putting them in water. So, but I'm just saying, There are some different things you can do. And here's the other thing, make it fun. If you're a couple or you're a family, every week choose maybe a culture that you want to celebrate. And maybe you find little cheap things to put on to fit the culture. You make the food that fits the culture. You have like a little kind of party, themed party. It can be fun. So, or you could have a surprise night, like his night's Thursday night. He's not going to tell you what he's going to make. That's kind of fun for both sides. So, I just made that up. La 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 la. So, our whole point here is it's your health. It's the path to you enjoying your life, to live longer, to live happier. Is there anything that's more important? I don't think so. Do you, Daria?
Nothing.
It's the beginning of enjoying. It's the path to a happy, healthy life. We must put more time into this.
Yes.
So, and this is part of our mission. This is really, I was excited to do this show because I was horrified to find out what I did, and I wanted to share it so that we can help people. But our tagline is to put you in control of your medical decisions, and having a healthy lifestyle is included in that mission. And we truly believe it. We wouldn't be doing this if we really didn't believe it, and we didn't think that these things were going to help people. So we'll add a bunch of links in here and get all this set up so that it's easy for you to start the research and start living a different way, a healthier way. That's
Amen
it.
To that.
Is that good?
That's good. And I want to thank everyone for listening. And we will put everything in the show notes. And we look forward to seeing you next time on Life, Liberty, and Wellness.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye, everyone.